Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cecil from the Oculus Institute, and today I'm going to answer the question of which coding language should I learn? I had a client who came to me a while back and he asked me this question. He said, which coding language should I learn? I'm looking at getting into coding, but I don't know what language to learn, right? There's so many different languages, where do I start? And you know, I have a background in coding, so I have some understanding of it. But I also had another client who is a high-level, full-stack developer who can do so much. And so I said, you know, listen, man, I can answer this question, but it's better if I refer you to this other guy. No, that guy's name is a guy named Josh Summers. He's a good friend, you know, great client, and he's actually helping me build out some stuff on my site. So if you happen to see him in my Facebook group or whatever, you know, give him a little salute. But so I'm going to share with you what Josh said, because it was the best description I've ever heard of this. So the first thing that he said is, you know, you've got to break coding down into a couple buckets, because people think it's just all coding, but there's actually a couple different buckets. So the first bucket is front-end stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that you'll see for, you know, like on a website or a web application. This is stuff like HTML. This is stuff like JavaScript. This is stuff like CSS, right? This is like the web design stuff, and that's the front end, right? And front-end stuff, you know, you can generally charge people to help make them websites, and, you know, and there's money in that. The second category is the backend stuff. So the backend stuff is going to be stuff like PHP, Java, .NET, and those languages are the manipulation that's happening behind the scenes, right? So the front end stuff kind of controls what people see, and then the backend stuff controls a lot of the mechanics that people don't see. But if you don't have it, then you're very limited in what you can do on the front end, right? So, you know, you can definitely charge for stuff on the front end, but if you can also do the back end stuff, well, now you can expand what you're capable of building. You can deliver a much higher quality product. And then the other component is, the third bucket is what's called database. And that would be like SQL, right? And very often, you know, SQL, again, that's kind of like back end stuff. So the way, you know, any kind of program is constructed is it very often will need to draw on a large, you know, database of various different fields. And you have to be able to manipulate that in order to pull out the relevant data. So, you know, if somebody's going down a particular path, you need to show them X, right? If they have a user account, it has to go to their user account in the database and pull out their specific information. And so it's much more similar to backend than it is to front end. And since like SQL, for example, has so many applications, that's a very broad-based language that's a good place for people to start. But if you really want to make a lot of money coding, if you want to make $150, $200, $300 an hour coding, then you want to become what's called a full stack developer. And a full stack developer is somebody who has front-end skills, back-end skills, and database skills, right? That's somebody who can do everything, who has a large degree of functionality available to them to help their clients, instead of being limited to using, you know, some kind of pre-built editor on the front end and not really being able to do complex stuff because the back end is stuff that they just don't understand, right? So within, you know, the concept of being a full stack developer, Josh continued to specify that there are actually two competing stacks that are really big. One is what's called the Microsoft .NET stack, which would be things like, you know, .NET, HTML, and the other is called the LAMP stack. And depending on, you know, whether you're looking to work for small and medium-sized businesses, in which case you'd be better off using like the .NET stack, or big companies, in which case you'd be better off learning the LAMP stack. You know, that's kind of like which stack you want to learn. And I know that I've just gone through a lot of different languages, right? And there are others, there's like lower level languages, there's things like, you know, C++ and Ruby on Rails and Python and all these kinds of basic languages. And that's something that Josh actually said, was that, you know, it can be really helpful to go learn some of those basic languages to get started with. Like, I know that Python is a good thing for people to get started learning code. C++ can be a great way to get started learning code. And the reason for that is that, you know, we've talked about what's in demand and what people want and all this kind of stuff up here. But more important than any of that is the basic thought processes that go into being a good coder. And those basic thought processes are actually transferable across any coding language. And so it matters less which specific language you learn, than it does that you get those basic processes, right? And that's why sometimes the best place to start can be something like, C++ or Python, where you're learning that basic way in which computers operate, right? Because that basic set of skills, that linear thinking, can then be applied, and any other language you learn is just learning syntax. I mean, like, my client Josh, knows like 30 languages or something like that. I myself know a couple. I'm very proficient in one, and then I know a couple others. But once you understand that basic principle and those basic linear thinking and mathematical thinking skills, then you can learn another language very easily, right? It's much harder to go from 0 coding languages to 1 than it is to go from 1 to 5. And I would recommend that you go, if you're really interested in coding, then go to a website called codeacademy.com. That's CODECADEMY. And there's a lot of free tutorials they have. And it's no affiliate link or anything. It's just something where it's a place for people to get started learning coding for free. And then, if you like it, there's some paid stuff later. And I have no connection to them, but it's just a really good resource, right? And so, don't obsess over which coding language to learn, right? Just pick one and get going. And then after that, think about, hey, what kind of work do I want to do? Do I want to go down the .NET stack? Do I want to go down the LAMP stack? And you'll have a much better ability to assess that once you know whether or not you even want to do coding at all, and once you have a better understanding of it. Before you go, I've got a free gift for you. So if you found this video valuable, if it helped you see the world in a new way, and you're interested in building a career that's going to bring you both personal fulfillment and financial prosperity, then I've got a free presentation for you to help you do just that. So if you go to the link below, it's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. That's www.oculusinstitute.com/workshop. Then it'll take you to a registration for a free presentation. It's about 50 minutes long, that's 50, and it's gonna give you the step-by-step process to building your dream career. See you there.